Here we are starting the offseason, and not that, like, it should be settled by the third day of the week after their loss or anything like that, but very much in, all right, what do the Bills actually need to do mode? We've been on Myles Garrett. We spent a minute on Cooper Kupp yesterday. I don't know if that's really a good idea, but, any kind of name comes along. But really more so like with the draft and free agency and positions. And this is an offseason where there's a longer list than we've had in a long time for what they need. And I'm a little bit coming around on Garrett, I think. I don't know. I like the argument for going for it. But I just have a hesitation or reluctance. I have a reluctance about like sort of loading up on one guy on defense for this team. I'm getting closer to, okay, well, maybe I can meet the price and maybe it's what I should do. But I'm not all the way there yet.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this yesterday because you said something similar yesterday about the holes, like the holes to fill. And look, I think you can look at their season, especially the end of it on defense, and point at places you'd like to get better. That's not the same as holes to me. Like to me, they've got guys. Rapp is under contract. Bishop is a second-round player who was a rookie this year. Like it would almost blow my mind unless they draft a replacement for Rapp. If those aren't, or find a better idea in free agency, which I suppose that they could do that too. But it would almost blow my mind if those aren't their safeties to start the year. So like I don't see a hole there. Corner, I think, is interesting. I said yesterday, one of the reasons I like the Garrett idea is it might allow me to sort of circle back. I think if I get better there, if I get someone who can, it's a little chicken and the egg kind of thing, right? But I got someone more dangerous, a game wrecker up front. Maybe Douglas isn't as exposed as he looked toward the back end of this season. Like I thought he was kind of at the scene of the crime a little too often for my liking.
You could do that either way, right? With a corner?
Yeah.
Like it's why I need one or it's why I don't.
Right. So I'm thinking about replacing him if that's available, depending on what his market is, because I want to try to get better. I'd like to be better than him, maybe more versatile, right? He seemed to struggle in man coverage and is better in zone. I want to have guys that can do both if I need to, and there's not a lot of foot speed out there. Bishop might be the fastest of those four guys, which is a little scary, I think. Benford is excellent, but he is not foot speed. Like he's not, and Douglas definitely isn't. So anyway, all that said, the linebackers to me are all set, even the primary backup in Dorian Williams with Milano and Bernard. So I'm looking at the defensive line. What can I do there? And that's where Garrett sort of becomes, I think, a decent idea, or maybe even a better than decent idea, because it might, it could cut both ways. It might talk me into or talk them into that they're more important than me. It might talk you into, I'm good enough with these guys. I really need to do something up there. And then the rest of this is going to fall into place. And I'm right now, until further notice, I'm buying that. I think Garrett's enough of a winner and a difference maker there that everything else isn't as stressed if I've got that. So it's a lot to build on, one guy being your primary move to make everything better.
That should be right, though.
I think it works. So if I can make that trade, yes, I'm going to give up stuff to make that happen, stuff that could help me in these other areas. But I don't feel the urgency to draft a corner at 30 that's got to play. If I can keep Douglas on a reasonable number and swing the Garrett trade, I'm okay with my safeties. I mean, I love this giant kid from South Carolina.
Go on.
Sounds great. But, is he going to even be there at 30? Do the Bills like him? Is that even going to line up? And, okay, but if I do Garrett, then I don't have the 30th pick. I would think most definitely, and that's off the table. But yeah, Rapp's okay, and Bishop is a second year, and okay. Like, I can talk myself into not really doing much more than Garrett on defense. I'll draft some guys, and maybe one of them is a Benford in the making or something. Great. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to replenish corner even if I keep Douglas, but Garrett just alleviates a lot of that for me on defense. From there, then I'm going to look at the offense. Then receiver jumps right to the front of the line to me. Now, how likely is it that you draft a receiver with one of your second-round picks, say? If you trade away your first and maybe one of the seconds to make this Garrett trade happen, can I get a guy in the 60s that can win on the outside for me, sort of replace what Cooper represented when they made that acquisition right before the trade deadline? I don't know. Like, that gets pretty shaky. The free agent list doesn't look great. I don't know what I'm really going to do there yet. I've got time to figure it out.
Well, I think the first question there is whether the Bills want to do anything.
Right. I think they should, but overall, my point is, I don't know how I just laid that out. How many holes are there again? I don't think there are that many. If Garrett plugs 2 or 3 of them sort of in and of itself, like by virtue of, everything I just said. I don't think there's that much. I think he could help you enough to make the defense stable with basically everyone else returning.
Well, what you're describing is, the best case scenario, that whatever that draft package is enough to get him, and you still have a second-round pick left to use on a receiver that maybe could even start. Probably not, but that's the best-case scenario, I would think.
Yes.
Is, the way you lay it out. I am really wondering, I'm really curious, like, what they'll think they want or need to do at receiver. Because this is sort of, it's familiar, thinking about last year and how the season played out, where they were up and down, they changed coordinators, then they shifted to this run-oriented offense, and they won like crazy. I mean, they had they had success. They lose the playoff game to the Chiefs, but I was feeling like, this is what they're going to want to be, and that was mostly right. I mean, they did throw the ball, and they threw it short a lot, but that was mostly right. What we got this year, and I think it was to be expected, was more Cook after what happened last year. So if you use the same logic, won't they, I know they lost in the playoffs again, but won't they think this year went well, that it worked, what they did philosophically with the players they have, that it worked? And so it's always going to be a little different, but will they want to go looking for whoever the star receiver might be in a trade or something like this? I kind of doubt it, because it had a name and everything. Like, what they did last year was by design, and they went to the AFC Championship. So what does that mean ultimately, a receiver? Well, I've got 2 free agents in Hollins and Cooper that may or may not be back. I've said this already, but I would think they'd want Hollins back. I don't know if they'd want Cooper back. That's one, like, would they tell you that worked? He didn't produce. But the whole idea that his presence mattered to the rest of the offense
was still wildly productive, and he did represent, in theory, something that they obviously felt they were lacking, so they did it. And yeah, that's, like, I'm not inclined to disagree with how they finished the year being where they'd like to pick up again, but that's where Cooper comes in. Like, what do you do there? Is there someone out there that replaces him? Or do you go into the year with Coleman another year older and bring back Hollins and, I don't know, some modest free agent idea, maybe something equating to what you did with Samuel last offseason, to try that, and if it doesn't work, then pivot in October again like you did this year. Maybe that's a pretty modest, it's certainly not an outlay of assets to acquire someone to replace Cooper. But I think Cooper it's important, I think, to keep in mind that they felt a need, they acted on it. So I'm including that as part of sort of continuing with what they've got. They're going to need a guy like that to replace him if he's not here.
Do you think the Bills re-signing Amari Cooper to, a reasonable deal, whatever that is? They're not going to break the bank on this, but to a contract most people would see as reasonable, would be popular. Do the fans want Cooper back?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Because they want what or who instead?
Something better,
Younger.
something flashier, something that he's not. What is he? He's, I think, a declining player who's had an excellent career, has shown that he can be productive, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen ever again. He there might have been a cliff, and the Bills bought it, and they didn't get exactly burned by it because, again, they had success until they lost in the AFC Championship game. So it's not like it's a fail, but I think you'd want.
I think it almost is.
Like if, yeah.
Well,
I think if they'd thrown the ball to him more. And he caught, what did he catch here? 20-some passes?
Yeah.
Right? If he caught 50 passes, which isn't a crazy amount for how long he was here, then I think you'd have more sort of, clamoring, but bring it back. Just run it back. It's fine.
But he didn't.
Right. So
there are reasons why guys don't get thrown the ball.
That's why I don't think fans would be like, oh, good. You re-signed that guy. I don't know. I think at the right price, though, I could live with it at the right price, but I'm not sure what the right price is. Even a modest contract for a player who's had his career. Again, this is not last season only. I mean, I don't know. In free agency, is someone giving him $20 million a year?
No.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to be sure.
All right.
32 teams. I want to be sure. I was thinking less than 10.
Okay. Wow.
So I want to be sure.
Yeah. Well, there's your Curtis Samuel deal. If you could sign him 3 years for $30 million,
Cooper,
I would say that's a win.
Oh, I would hate it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I want. I mean, eventually I'm going to have to decide, but I don't know what I want.
Right.
I don't think it's him. I just don't think that was successful. And there are reasons why guys don't get the ball more. He didn't earn that. They ended up playing so short. If he had he was here long enough. If he had demonstrated the ability to be dangerous, then the Bills have no excuse for not capitalizing on that. Instead, the last play is a screen pass to him. That's the play before the final play of the season, right, on offense. It's not that you can't throw screen passes, but they did not get him off. So I would think they do something else, but I'm really curious. Like I said, I think there's room for Hollins, who did, by the way, lead them in touchdown catches, which is crazy, with 5 on a team that set a franchise record in scoring. But that did happen, and everybody seemed to love him. Samuel is kind of tied in, right?
Yeah.
So is Knox probably, and Kincaid and Shakir.
I want to check Samuel. I'm not eager to part ways with him. The contract's modest enough that, you might feel like if he's healthy at the start, maybe it's a different thing. But I think when they signed him, that was pretty easy to walk away from, without much penalty.
The cap hit is 9 next year, and dead would be 11.
Ugh. Okay.
The year after is when they can walk. And
okay.
I would predict that they do
I
that.
think he's here. I'd be surprised, I think, sitting here right now, if they didn't try to do something comparable to what they did with him. Add in for inflation and the cap going up, which is why I'm getting to $10 million a year. And I also would like them to try to do something different than Cooper, because I also don't think, their results were good, but did he work for them? I don't know. No, I think. So try a different guy in that price range. I think that's called for. I don't know, will it work? That's the question. We were really excited about Samuel when that happened, and that didn't really work until the end. It started to look at least a little like it could be something.
There just aren't that many players in free agency that are worth that.
Right.
The first guy
and trades real quick. Trades are guys that are making 3 times that. right? If some team is trading a promising receiver in their mid to late 20s, it's because he's carrying, some number with him, and they've got a younger guy and a better idea, or he's about to be due for that money and they don't want to pay it. And so I don't think the Bills are going to be in that marketplace at all. I'd be stunned if they were in that marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So I think free agency is really tough, and the trade market, I think, could be pretty challenging, at least at the high end. It doesn't mean, you can't find a guy.
What's your names?
In the mid-tier, but, a guy in the mid-tier who's productive and has a modest contract is valuable. Like a team is going to be eager. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll trade you my 27-year-old 70-catch guy. I don't have a name for you. I'm just hypothetically.
I have a name for today.
Teams are squatting on those guys.
I have a name for today, but it's not what you're describing right now. We're going to talk to Andrew later. Pickens.
Jesus Christ, no.
Never ever?
Sorry, boy, that was a little glib.
Never ever?
I apologize. No. Never, ever.
Culture?
100%. And that is not just me saying the Bills aren't in that. I don't want anything to do with it.
Neither does Andrew.
I think the guys, unreliable is a word that is maybe polite.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
A little bit.
There you go.
Maybe a little bit.
I don't want them to go anywhere near a guy like that.
Okay.
That's Diggs on acid. I do not need Diggs on acid.
Gary, any interest?